The Lifestyle of D'Angelo, 2025. House Tour. Cause of Death. Partner 3.
Hey there.
Children,
This is what I
Cars,
look
Net
like.
Worth. What if I
Click
told
use
you
this
one of the
avatar to
greatest
start your
voices in
journey.
music history died with only $1 million, even though he changed the entire sound of R&B? What if the man who inspired Beyoncé Maxwell and Prince himself chose his soul over success and paid the ultimate price? This is not just a story about fame. This is about sacrifice, pain, comeback, and legacy. From sleeping in studios to topping Billboard, from sex symbol to silence, from legend to ghost. Ready to uncover the truth behind D'Angelo's life, love, death, and hidden final album? Hit like, subscribe, and let's dive in only on Legends of Black Excellence. The heavenly voice that changed soul forever. Close your eyes and imagine a voice that doesn't just sing but reaches into your chest and wraps around your heart. That was D'Angelo. He didn't shout to be heard. He whispered and the world leaned in. His tone was velvet, warm, and intimate, like a candle flickering in a dark room. Rooted in the sacred spirit of gospel, yet drenched in sensual soul, every note he delivered felt alive. You didn't just listen to his music, you felt it in your skin, your breath, your memories. He didn't create songs. He created emotional experiences that lingered long after the last chord faded. At a time when R&B was chasing radio formulas and shiny trends, D'Angelo arrived like a time traveler from the past, authentic, raw, fearless. He didn't try to be a star. He tried to be honest, and that honesty became magnetic. Like Marvin Gaye before him, D'Angelo turned love, pain, faith, and vulnerability into sonic poetry. His music wasn't background noise, it was a confession. Listeners connected to him not because he was perfect, but because he was human. He reminded the world that soul music wasn't about technique, it was about truth. His presence ignited an era. When D'Angelo brought depth back to R&B, he opened the door for a new generation of artists who valued emotion over commercial trends. Erykah Badu was one of the first to step through that door. If D'Angelo was the heartbeat of neo-soul, Erykah was the breath that kept it alive. Together, they didn't follow the industry, they redefined it. They merged jazz, gospel, hip-hop, funk, and blues into a fluid sound that felt spiritual and revolutionary. Without flashy marketing, their music spread like a sacred secret among true music lovers. From Brown Sugar to Untitled, How Does It Feel? D'Angelo didn't just influence fans, he reshaped artists. Alicia Keys, John Legend Maxwell, Music Soul Child, and so many others built their sound on the foundation he laid. He refused to let the industry control him. Instead, he controlled the art. He moved slowly, intentionally protecting the soul of his music. If Marvin Gaye was the voice of the past, and Erykah Badu was the voice of the movement, then D'Angelo was the spark. The divine energy that proved music isn't just something you hear, it's something you live. From church pew to destiny, the making of a prodigy. Born in Richmond, Virginia, D'Angelo entered a world where struggle and faith lived side by side. His family didn't have money, but they had purpose. Their home was small, meals were simple, and clothes were shared among siblings. But every Sunday, the house filled with gospel hymns and powerful prayers. His father, Luther Archer, wasn't just a Pentecostal preacher. He was a spiritual anchor who taught his children that music was not performance, it was ministry. His mother, Mary, was the quiet warrior of the home. She worked tirelessly, held the family together, and embodied resilience. In that environment of devotion and discipline, young Michael Eugene Archer found his first language music. By the age of 3, he could play piano by ear, imitating church hymns without reading a single note. While other kids played outside, he sat at the keys exploring sounds like a painter exploring color. His siblings gathered around, clapping, singing, turning the living room into a mini choir rehearsal. These family jam sessions built his confidence and connected him to something larger than himself. But outside of home, the world was harsher. Growing up black in a divided city, he saw racial tension, poverty, and limited opportunity. School wasn't safe. He was the church boy, The quiet kid with big dreams and bullies targeted him. At 10 years old, a playground fight left him bruised physically and emotionally, but also awakened a new fire inside. Instead of collapsing under that pain, he translated it into melody. His father told him, "Turn your hurt into purpose," and those words shaped his destiny. Music became his armor and his healing. By 16, responsibility weighed on his shoulders. His family struggled to pay bills, so he took odd jobs washing dishes, moving furniture, anything to help. He would work late, then sit at the piano until sunrise, pouring exhaustion and hope into unfinished songs. While others partied, he practiced. While friends chased popularity, he chased authenticity. Every experience, good or bad, became fuel for his creativity. Most teenagers dream of escaping their circumstances, but D'Angelo transformed his circumstances into art. Growing up in the church taught him harmony. Growing up in hardship taught him truth. He didn't just play music, he felt it in his bones. Every chord held a memory. Every lyric held a scar. Each struggle made his spirit stronger, and each victory made his voice deeper. He was not molded by fame or industry. He was forged by life. From the very beginning, it was clear this was no ordinary child. This was a vessel of soul, a product of faith, and a young man destined for greatness. Apollo. Failure to Apollo triumph. The moment the world noticed. Leaving the safety of Richmond, D'Angelo stepped into New York City with nothing but a keyboard, a dream, and blind faith. The streets were unforgiving. Tiny apartments were too expensive, so he crashed on studio floors and curled up on worn-out couches. On nights when he couldn't find a place to sleep, he stayed awake writing lyrics under dim lights while hunger pressed against his ribs. Cheap ramen became dinner, and the smell of reheated coffee was his only comfort. But every struggle whispered the same message: keep going. The city tried to break him, but his passion burned louder than the sirens outside his window. He believed that if he could survive New York, he could conquer the world. With nothing to lose, he set his sights on the most legendary stage in black music history, the Apollo Theater Amateur Night, a place that built stars and destroyed egos. From Ella Fitzgerald to James Brown to Lauryn Hill, this stage had witnessed greatness and humiliation. D'Angelo walked onto it with trembling hands, heart racing but hope in his voice. The moment he opened his mouth, the crowd was silent. Then the boos came, sharp, ruthless. They didn't just reject him, they crushed him. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was heartbreak. He left the stage feeling like his dream had died. For the first time, he questioned whether destiny had lied to him. Back in his darkest moment, he called his mother. She didn't comfort him with pity, she gave him power. "God's got you," Mary said. "If it broke you, it wasn't your moment. Go get the one that belongs to you." Those words rewired his spirit. Instead of running away, he went back to work. He trained his voice, sharpened his presence, studied legends like Marvin Gaye and Donny Hathaway, and rebuilt himself from the inside out. He didn't just improve, he transformed. When he returned to the Apollo stage months later, he walked in with calm confidence, as if he owned the air around him. The lights rose and he sang not to impress, but to testify. This time, the crowd didn't boo. They stood, they clapped, they roared. He turned the same stage that humiliated him into the birthplace of his legend. The Apollo Theater, once a symbol of failure, became the spark that proved he was unstoppable. Even Lauryn Hill, who once stood there as a teenage sensation, would later share that same stage with him as equals. From the edge of giving up, D'Angelo rewrote his story. He didn't just return, he conquered. And in that moment, the world felt the arrival of a future icon. Brown Sugar and the birth of neo-soul royalty. Before the world knew his name, D'Angelo was already shaping the sound of a generation from behind the scenes. In 1994, he joined Black Men United, a supergroup of the most influential young male vocalists in R&B. The room was filled with giants, usher boys to two men, Brian McKnight, Gerald Levert, Tevin Campbell. Yet when D'Angelo sat at the piano and began writing, "You Will Know Something Magical" happened. The chatter stopped. Every artist leaned in. Even Usher, still an emerging star, watched in silence as D'Angelo poured raw emotion into the melody. Boys, too. Men known for their flawless harmonies nodded in respect. In a room full of powerful voices, his quiet genius stole the spotlight without trying. "You Will Know" became the anthem of the 1994 film Jason's Lyric, climbing the R&B charts and exposing D'Angelo's songwriting brilliance to the industry. That moment unlocked his future. Record executives realized he wasn't just a writer, he was a force. Soon after, he stepped into the studio to create his debut album with complete creative freedom, a luxury rarely given to newcomers. Instead of chasing radio trends, he fused funk bass lines, gospel chords, hip-hop rhythm, and sensual soul, crafting a sound that felt vintage and futuristic at the same time. It was risky, it was different, and it was exactly what the world didn't know it needed. In 1995, he released Brown Sugar, and everything changed overnight. The title track exploded onto the charts, seducing listeners with its smoky groove and hypnotic vibe. It didn't sound like anything else on the radio. No flashy production, no pop formula. It was raw, cool, spiritual, and seductive all at once. The album sold over 3 million copies worldwide, went platinum, and earned Grammy nominations. Critics hailed it as the rebirth of soul music. Fans felt like they had discovered something sacred. D'Angelo wasn't just successful, he was important. What made Brown Sugar revolutionary wasn't just the sound, it was the identity it gave to a new movement. That album ignited the neo-soul era, paving the way for artists like Erykah Badu Maxwell and Musiq Soulchild. It proved that music could be commercially successful without sacrificing authenticity. One day, he was a mysterious newcomer. By the next, he was being called the modern Marvin Gaye. He didn't rely on trends or image. He relied on groove, emotion, and spiritual connection. With Brown Sugar, D'Angelo didn't just become a star, he became a symbol. A symbol of depth in a shallow industry. A symbol of artistry in a manufactured era. A symbol of what happens when soul meets destiny. Inside Soulquarians, the genius collective that rewrote music. When most artists were chasing hit singles and label approval, D'Angelo was busy building a revolution. In the late 1990s, he stepped inside Electric Lady Studios, the legendary space founded by Jimi Hendrix, and something electric happened. There he joined forces with Questlove of The Roots and the groundbreaking producer J Dilla. Together, they formed the core of the Soulquarians, a loose collective of fearless artists who refused to follow formulas. They didn't care about Billboard trends or radio rules, they cared about feeling. With live drums, imperfect takes, and raw emotion, they crafted music that sounded human in a digital age. The studio became their laboratory, their sanctuary, and their battlefield against the commercialized sound dominating the airwaves. The Soulquarians weren't just a group, they were a movement of misfits who made genius look effortless. Every night felt like history in the making. Erykah Badu floated in with her incense and poetry, turning vulnerability into power. Lauryn Hill brought fire and precision, and D'Angelo helped shape the soulful backbone of The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, one of the most iconic albums of all time. Common arrived with Conscious Rhymes and left with Electric Circus, an experimental record that pushed hip-hop into psychedelic territory with D'Angelo's fingerprints all over it. These artists didn't compete, they elevated each other. They jammed for hours, chasing the perfect groove like mad scientists, often recording in darkness just to feel deeper. In this creative storm, D'Angelo's genius expanded beyond vocals. He played multiple instruments, arranged harmonies, and layered textures like a painter adding color to a canvas. His sense of rhythm came alive under Questlove's drumming, while J Dilla's offbeat swing reshaped how he approached soul music. Off the stage, he studied performance from the master himself, Prince. Touring and spending time with the Purple One taught him how to command a stage without saying a word, how to be sexy without trying, and how to let silence speak louder than sound. Prince didn't just influence him, he refined him into a force. This era was more than collaboration, it was cultural alchemy. The Soulquarians resurrected the heart of black music and modernized it for a new generation. Their work rewrote the DNA of R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Without chasing mainstream approval, they became the blueprint for authenticity. Nearly every major soul and hip-hop record from the 2000s carries traces of their sound. For D'Angelo, this wasn't just the peak of his creativity, this was his kingdom. In those dimly lit rooms of Electric Lady Studios, surrounded by geniuses and guided by spirit, he didn't just make music. He helped build the golden age of modern R&B. The untitled video that made him a sex symbol and broke him. When D'Angelo released Voodoo in 2000, it was more than just an album, it was a cultural earthquake. The record debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, sold over 2 million copies, and won 2 Grammy Awards, proving he wasn't just a rising star, he was the future of soul. Critics hailed him as the modern heir to Marvin Gaye, blending sensuality and spirituality with divine precision. But it was one specific moment, a 30-second stretch in a music video that changed everything. Untitled How Does It Feel wasn't just a song, it became a phenomenon. The camera lingering on his bare, sculpted torso as he sang with raw intensity hypnotized the world. Overnight, D'Angelo went from soul prophet to global fantasy. At first, the attention felt flattering. Women screamed his name at concerts. The media couldn't stop talking about his body. But slowly, the applause started to feel different. People weren't praising his voice, they were objectifying his image. Interviewers ignored his songwriting and only asked about his abs. Fans at shows shouted, "Take your shirt off," instead of singing along. The music, his sacred language, was being drowned out by shallow obsession. He realized with dread that the world wasn't seeing his artistry, they were consuming his flesh. The industry packaged him like a product. He felt stripped not of clothes, but of identity. This kind of exploitation wasn't new. Prince once walked that dangerous line between art and desire. But Prince controlled the narrative. He played with sexuality on his own terms. D'Angelo, on the other hand, felt trapped inside an image he never asked for. Unlike Marvin Gaye, whose sensuality came wrapped in vulnerability and message, D'Angelo was turned into a silent poster boy for lust. The irony. The song itself was about emotional connection. But nobody cared about the lyrics, they cared about the body. The very thing that made him a legend was now destroying his peace. As the pressure grew, something inside him cracked. Every show became torture. He started avoiding interviews, skipping appearances, canceling tours. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. The world had crowned him a sex symbol, but he felt more like a prisoner. Fame, once exciting, now felt toxic. And so at the height of his success, with the entire industry watching, he disappeared. No farewell, no explanation. Just silence. The man who once commanded stages vanished into shadows, choosing solitude over exploitation. That 30-second video made him iconic, but it also broke him. And from that moment on, the legend of D'Angelo became as much about absence as it was about sound. Addiction, darkness, and disappearing from fame. At the peak of his success, D'Angelo vanished from the spotlight, leaving fans confused and the industry whispering rumors. What the world didn't see was the silent storm brewing inside him. Fame had twisted his image. Pressure consumed his spirit, and unresolved pain drove him toward escape. By the early 2000s, he began leaning on substances to numb the emotional chaos. The same man who once commanded stages with effortless confidence now struggled just to face the day. Depression crept in quietly, suffocating his passion. The studio, once his sanctuary, became a reminder of expectations he no longer felt strong enough to meet. He was drowning, and no one even knew he was underwater. Then 2005 hit like a thunderclap. Late one night in Virginia, he lost control of his vehicle and crashed violently into a fence. When police arrived, they found drugs and arrested him on DUI and possession charges. Headlines exploded, R&B genius spirals out of control. The media didn't ask what broke him. They only judged the wreckage. He became a target for sensational stories painted as another fallen star who couldn't handle success. The mugshot circulated online, stripping him of mystery and reducing him to a cautionary tale. He tried to stay low, but pain followed him. By 2010, he was arrested again in New York, and the phrase self-destruction became permanently attached to his name. The public, once enchanted by his voice, began to move on. His absence from music created a void that gossip quickly filled. Fans debated whether he was in rehab, hiding in the South, or even dead. Radio stopped playing his songs. New artists rose and took over the genre he helped create. The world that once crowned him king now forgot he existed. Even worse, the term neo-soul pioneer started appearing next to the word tragedy. The man who reinvented black music was now a ghost in conversation. Silence replaced applause. Loneliness replaced legacy. But while the world let go of him, he refused to let go of himself. Away from cameras, D'Angelo entered treatment, faced his demons, and began the brutal process of detoxing his body and healing his mind. Recovery wasn't instant. It wasn't glamorous. It was sweat, tears, therapy, relapse prayer, and relentless discipline. He rebuilt his life, step by step, day by day. He picked up instruments again, not for fame, but for survival. His comeback didn't start in a studio. It started in his soul. He realized that beating addiction wasn't about money, talent, or status. It was about willpower. And deep down, the warrior who once turned pain into music was still alive. He wasn't done. He was preparing to rise. The Resurrection. Black Messiah and the greatest comeback. For over a decade, the world assumed D'Angelo was gone forever. No music, no interviews, no appearances, just silence. Yet while the industry labeled him a fallen star, he was quietly rebuilding himself in the shadows. He worked on his health, sharpened his craft, and searched for purpose beyond fame. Then, on December 15, 2014, without warning or promotion, the impossible happened. He returned. No flashy rollout, no magazine covers, just one album dropped in the middle of the night, Black Messiah. And in that moment, the music world stopped breathing. A man everyone thought was broken had come back with more power than ever. Black Messiah wasn't just a musical comeback, it was a statement to the world. Sonically, it was daring, raw analog, and deeply spiritual. Lyrically, it was bold and political. While other artists played it safe, D'Angelo confronted the reality of America head-on. The album arrived during national outrage over the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, just as the Black Lives Matter movement was rising. His music became a mirror to society, echoing the pain, fear, and strength of a generation demanding justice. Songs like The Charade were not just beautiful, they were battle cries. This wasn't entertainment. This was testimony. Behind this resurrection stood a brotherhood of musical visionaries. Questlove, who never stopped believing in him, helped shape the rhythm and soul of the project. Raphael Saadiq added depth and richness to the arrangements, blending old-school funk with modern edge. Even Jay-Z, one of hip-hop's biggest icons, publicly praised D'Angelo's fearless artistry. The album debuted at number 5 on Billboard, won 2 Grammy Awards, and proved that real artistry doesn't age, it evolves. Critics called it the most important soul record of the 21st century. Fans called it a miracle. And just like that, D'Angelo reclaimed his throne without ever chasing the spotlight. What made this comeback legendary wasn't just success, it was intention. Most artists returned just to stay relevant. D'Angelo returned to restore meaning to music. He didn't sing about luxury parties or ego. He sang about identity, injustice, love, and liberation. Black Messiah reminded the world that soul isn't just a genre, it's a responsibility. It's truth wrapped in melody, protest wrapped in harmony. And through this masterpiece, D'Angelo proved a profound truth: genius can disappear, but it never dies. When it returns, it doesn't just make noise, it makes history. Love, fatherhood, and the heart behind the legend. In an industry built on image, D'Angelo proved that the most powerful kind of love isn't found under spotlights, it's found at home. He never chased romance for headlines or dated for publicity. He never married, but his deepest and most authentic relationship was with Angie Stone, the soulful R&B singer who understood his heart like no one else. They met in the studio during the creation of Brown Sugar, and what started as musical chemistry transformed into real connection. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was honest. In 1998, they welcomed their son, Michael Suavo Archer Jr., marking one of the happiest moments of his life. Even after they separated, their respect remained, and they continued co-parenting and collaborating, proof that real love doesn't always need a label. Outside the spotlight. D'Angelo was not a superstar. He was a father first. He had 3 children: Michael Jr., Imani, born 1999, and Morocco, born 2010. While the world begged for more albums, he focused on bedtime stories, home-cooked meals, and teaching his kids piano, the same way he learned as a child, by ear and by heart. He didn't want them raised by nannies or fame. He wanted them raised with values. At the height of his career, he turned down multi-million-dollar tour offers just to stay home and be present. In a world where celebrities collect trophies, he collected memories with his children. D'Angelo's love didn't stop at his own family, he poured it into his community. Remembering his own struggles growing up in Richmond, he funded music programs for underprivileged kids, providing instruments, lessons, and mentorship. He donated quietly to churches and youth centers without seeking attention or applause. In 2016, he received the BET Humanitarian Award, honoring his years of giving back. On stage, he accepted it with humility and said, "This isn't charity, it's responsibility." To him, success meant lifting others, not just elevating himself. While other artists flexed luxury, he invested in the next generation of dreamers. What made D'Angelo truly rare was his choice to live with intention. He could have been a billionaire brand, a constant touring machine, but instead he chose peace, authenticity, and connection. He shielded his children from fame, cooked Sunday meals, listened to their fears, and showed them what a gentle, present father looks like. He built a life filled not with cameras, but with love. In an industry obsessed with artificial relationships, D'Angelo proved a beautiful truth. Real love isn't found in showbiz, it's found in family. And that legacy is far greater than any award. The Quiet Death, the $1 million legacy, and the immortal soul. In early 2025, the world sensed something was wrong. D'Angelo had gone quiet again, canceling shows and stepping away from the public eye. But this time, it wasn't pressure or fame pulling him into the shadows. It was pain. After months of fatigue and sudden weight loss, doctors confirmed the unthinkable pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest forms of the disease, with a survival rate below 10%. For a man who once poured his entire soul into every note, even speaking became exhausting. Yet he refused to let the world see him weak. He chose to fight privately, surrounded by the only thing that ever truly mattered: family. In his Harlem brownstone, the same home where he wrote some of his greatest music, he spent his final days in quiet reflection, listening to vinyls, praying, and holding the hands of his children. On October 14, 2025, at just 51 years old, the voice of a generation took his final breath. His last words to his family were simple but eternal. "Keep singing always." When the news broke, the world stood still. RCA Records released an emotional statement: "Our brightest light has gone out." Grief swept through the music community like a tidal wave. Beyoncé paused a rehearsal and played Untitled in silence under dimmed lights. Maxwell, his longtime friend, wrote a heartbreaking tribute about losing the soul of our era. Questlove, who had been by his side during every chapter from Soulquarians to Black Messiah, posted an old photo of them in the studio with the caption, "He never chased the spotlight." The spotlight chased him. Fans across continents held candlelight vigils, painted murals, and flooded social media with memories. Streets in Harlem played his music from apartment windows. Radio stations dedicated entire days to his catalog. It didn't feel like a celebrity death, it felt like losing a piece of history. But even in death, D'Angelo had one last gift. Before he passed, he had been quietly recording new music, a deeply personal, unfinished project that captured both pain and rebirth. That unreleased album, preserved by his estate and RCA Records, was scheduled for a 2026 posthumous release. Fans around the world held their breath, waiting for what felt like his final conversation with humanity. It wouldn't just be an album. It would be a farewell, a spiritual hug, a final sermon from the preacher's son who turned soul into scripture. And then came the truth that shocked many. His net worth was only $1 million. In an industry where artists accumulate mansions, chains, and empty bragging rights, some expected him to be worth tens of millions. But to those who truly understood him, that number wasn't small, it was sacred. That $1 million was built on authenticity, not exploitation. He didn't sell alcohol brands or chase viral hits. He didn't accept every tour or endorsement that threw money at him. He turned down deals that demanded he dilute his sound. He chose integrity over income, peace over pressure, artistry over algorithms. He didn't just make music, he protected it. And in doing so, he protected his soul. D'Angelo died with less money than many one-hit wonders, but with more respect, influence, and spiritual impact than almost any musician of his generation. His songs still heal, his style still inspires, his courage still teaches. His silence was powerful, but his legacy is louder than ever. He may have left this world quietly, but his music will never stop singing. D'Angelo's story is more than music. It's proof that greatness isn't about money, fame, or chart positions, but about staying true to your soul even when the world tries to reshape you. He walked away from the spotlight to protect his spirit, yet his influence became even louder in his absence. He died with only $1 million, but left behind something priceless: honesty, integrity, and a sound that changed music forever. Some artists chase trends. D'Angelo created timeless truth. But here's the real question. Is artistic freedom worth more than fortune, or did he sacrifice too much? Let's talk right here on Legends of Black Excellence.